What's up? Welcome to another episode of Marvel Schmarvel. This is the special, super exclusive to YouTube side project of Movie Schmovie Podcast, which we put out every Friday. And by we, I am Steve, and I am here with
Ron
and John.
And we're not sure, obviously. There's like a pause.
Yeah.
And we're like, am I here with someone? Yeah, I am. Here with Ron and John as always. This is again our weekly podcast or spin-off, I guess, of our podcast that we do here exclusively on YouTube, where we kind of have decided to like talk about the Marvel properties, specifically the TV shows that they're releasing on Disney Plus, and eventually, some of the movies that they're putting out, whether theatrically or day and date theatrically and Disney Plus, like we talked about on our last podcast episode briefly, the whole change with Black Widow coming out in theaters and on Disney Plus with their premiere access. So we'll be talking about that here too when that happens. But for now, what we've been trying to do is weekly get together and talk about the Disney Plus series, which we talked about WandaVision. Last week, we introduced it to the new series, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and now we're back. Talk about the second episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier entitled The Star-Spangled Man. Who is this Star-Spangled Man, Ronald? Tell me about this guy.
The Star-Spangled Man is he's Cap's replacement, who is
totally
US
forgettable
agent.
name. I can't even think of what the guy's name
John
is.
Walker.
It escapes my yeah.
Is that even a name? I mean, really, that's just like a combination of sounds. That's not even a real name.
Yeah, this guy he's coming in to feel the mantle of Captain America, and boy, does he have a lot of nuanced craziness to really fill the shoes of Cap, because Cap's mantle is both like this representation of like liberty and justice, but also he has to be kind of a great interview, also a great these are things that were not explored before in the Marvel universe, sort of what it takes to become a patriot in this sort of mantle of Captain America. How you guys feel about the depiction of that, and where we start off with the U.S. agent when we come into it?
John, why don't you jump in on this?
I mean, I think everything you just said, Ronald, is the interesting part. It's that ground level stuff that we were commenting on last week that seems to be kind of, if not unique to this show in the MCU, it's something they're definitely doing, is showing you the behind the scenes, the sort of in between the scenes. And it remains some of the most compelling stuff. I mean, thus far in this show, the character motivations have been really well depicted. And I would say introducing this new guy, this John Walker, this kind of stooge character who could easily be every bit the butt of the joke, as people were making of him in all the memes that came out after that one shot of him at the end of the first episode with his ears kind of poking out. People really had fun with what a down market Cap he seemed to be.
The derp Cap.
But this week he was not that at all. I mean, it's like he's definitely got an edge to him, and he definitely seems like maybe there's some bravado, and you can see how he might trip over himself and might be a problem for our heroes at some point. But I think they very quickly made him not a stuffed shirt, kind of an MCU thing to do is say, well, no, if we're going to deal with this guy, let's make him not an easy failure in the role of Cap.
Right.
Let's maybe give a more tense, more important, more like, character defining moment for him to either fall short or reveal how he's different. I would say by the end of the episode, you can see that he's just a little bit more of a government man than Steve ever was. He's a little bit more of like a willing face of the operation. But I thought that he was a really interesting kind of fly in the ointment this week, and I thought that Wyatt Russell was really good, really kind of intense, and there's a moment or two where there's like an edge behind his kind of affable quality that he's trying to put on, and you can see that he's not a guy who wants to mess around. But they showed him trying to be, I mean, again, they're not trying to make him an easy villain, because he tried to work with our guys, and we see why they wouldn't work with him, but we can also see that he was sincere in trying to work with them, or at least thus far, it seems like he was sincere. There's an edge creeping into him now at the end of the episode that seems like he's starting to, again, he could be the guy he could be the object of, or the agent of someone's agenda that's not like his own. He's not, a true hero in that sense. But I thought he was an interesting character. And as far as an episode that dealt with what he adds to it, it just added to my interest. Where Falcon and Winter Soldier are at the end of the episode. Pardon me, White Wolf are at the end of the episode. It was a great point to bring them to. You kind of saw it coming in some ways, but it was a really cool. It's look, we're going to get our Hannibal Lecter in the MCU kind of character with Zemo.
Yeah.
So all that was really working for me.
I think it's a good point. Like the biggest thing for the John Walker character, beyond Captain America, like the mantle that he's taking up, but like, you know, the moment at the beginning of the episode where he's kind of in that locker room at that high school and, you know, looking at his locker and, you know, there's like a real, like the personal element of the character beyond being Captain America. You really do, like, it makes it hard to like project or see where this character may go bad or where this character may become a problem for our show leads. Because, you know, you really do see someone who has like positive motivation. You see somebody who is really kind of daunted by this mantle that he's taking up, and by a lot of the things like you said, Ronald, like the PR angle of it and like the showboat angle of it. You know, he really just wants to do right by his country, and he really just has positive and like genuinely good motivations. And like that's really tough to stomach when you can kind of see, you know, even though he tries to get our leads to work with him and they have the reasons for not, you can kind of see that, like you can kind of project like where that fracture point might be, like where
Exactly.
a character like that might break, you know, especially when they are trying to fill the shoes of someone that has superpowers that he doesn't have, you know, and that whole fight sequence on the top of the tractor trailer, you know, it really does kind of ground him as nowhere near the agent or nowhere near the force that, you know, even Falcon and Winter Soldier are, to be real, like without the shield, like without any of that, he's no match for any of them. And I think that was really interesting for me, having no idea who this character is in the comics. Again, I come into this pretty fresh usually, beyond what you guys had told me. But I did really like that. And I really do like Wyatt Russell a lot. You know, like I feel like I was way more interested in him in this episode than I thought I might be. And I really did find myself like, damn, why can't they just work with him? And this could work out for everybody. You know what I mean? Like you almost question your heroes when you're like, just kind of help the guy. Like he's not the one that stole your shield. Like he's just a guy that's doing what they asked him to do in a lot of ways. So I do think that works really well into the drama of the series and like that human element, that grounded piece that we've all talked about so far with this series, which is like the most interesting stuff so far for sure. But
he's pretty good with that
really
shield.
Interested.
For a guy with no superpowers, he's pretty good with that shield.
Yeah, he is. Like the way they just show him on that like training course. And I mean, I think because he genuinely is like an amazing soldier. Mm-hmm. You know, he has like, you know, an unrivaled record, it seems, in like the way they frame him. And I think that perspective though of like the best soldier that the American, you know, the U.S. Army has to offer, the Marines or wherever he's from, is really no match for any of this stuff. You know, like I think that is like wild when you get that quick perspective that they just get knocked off the top of a truck. You know, it is.
We could also find out more
and like catches his friend as he's falling. That was really cool, I thought.
Yeah,
but I mean, like
we could also find out more about him that we don't know, that the PR reel isn't showing. You know what I mean? They could hint at something
for sure.
But thus far, you're right. They seem to be depicting him as someone who kind of has the goods, but just isn't up to the standards of these characters we've been watching in terms of embodying all of that, in terms of kicking ass the way Captain America did. But you're right. He takes it seriously. What do you think of his? What do you think of his Bucky? I never caught the guy's name. The guy who's kind of there with him.
Like what was it? What was his name? Lamar?
Was it Hoskins?
Yeah. He had like a nickname for himself.
It's like Lamar Hoskins or something like that.
Lamar Hoskins, yeah.
Yeah.
He did call himself something though. What was? Did you catch like what the nickname was?
Starburst or Star? No, I'm serious. I think it was
No. No, you're right. I'm trying to look it up, but I remember like when they say it.
It wasn't Skittles.
Like, in the show, people are like laughing.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say something about just the theme that's going on throughout the show. I mean, beyond just the
Battlestar. Sorry,
Battlestar. Oh yeah,
Battlestar.
Which I think is a great name. Actually,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Beyond just the daunting mantle of just being able to fill the shoes of Captain America, I think one thing that they've been kind of skating around in a really cool way in the Disney way that the high school sort of after school special sort of way, is what America means to Black people as it pertains to serving the country, as it means to like just love the United States. To love America as a Black person is to tolerate things that just aren't accessible to most other people. I mean, you just deal with a set of problems that are just, the level of oppression is just really heavy. So, you know, Sam is kind of not trying to be an asshole about this thing where he's, Bucky's kind of pushing up on him like, why didn't you take the mantle? Why didn't you do this? You could have been good. He obviously sees something in him that, that he doesn't see in himself. But Sam is also battling the idea of what I represent to the world is not what I represent to you or Steve Rogers, or, the interconnectivity that you have, sort of the access that you have to people in the Army is a little different than people's experiences when they're outside of that. People feel very differently about you in the world. And there was a scene that kind of pointed to that when, Sam was in Baltimore and they just thought it was plain old Black Sam. I'm going to call him Black Sam because I could do that. They thought it was plain old Black Sam, and then the cops put up on him. And he was just a regular person who was about to be accosted by the police. I think they were implying that there was going to be some, some baton work. For sure. They were going to baton his legs, definitely.
Yeah, no, that was definitely part of the show's attempt to show that stuff. This just like the bank loan situation last week. I mean, they're definitely not shying away from. Yeah. I mean, again, this continues to feel pretty gritty and grounded for a Marvel thing. We were talking about the difference between prestige television that we've come to appreciate and like appreciating the MCU, like WandaVision, for being an MCU show. And I'm not trying to knock WandaVision at all, because I still have like, especially the character stuff from that show, I hold in a really high regard. But this feels like even more so like a step in that direction of something that they might not have done, or a tone that they haven't, at least it's not across all the movies. I guess it's still very similar to the Winter Soldier movie, but I would say even more so than that, it seems to be really concerned with kind of realistic social dynamics. And I think that's something that, like, even the therapy scenes have had this weight to them that feels like they're taking it seriously. It's not a joke to them, So I think that, all that's very real, Ronald. And I think that struck me last week when it was, War Machine and Sam standing in the exhibit and having that conversation, because War Machine is kind of giving Sam a different perspective, saying like, to me it seems really important to be offered that role. But War Machine, he's a bit more of a company man. I mean, he's his own thinker, but he's a little bit more, and Sam's trying to be something different. And I think you said something about how Falcon's character has been kind of glib and surface level up till now, Ronald. But I think they've done I think Anthony Mackie, the creators of this show, have done a lot to add that substance, to the point where this week I really was thinking about what Steve was saying, like his reasons for doing this or doing that. Like, you really are thinking about like what it means to him, like this person who's taking Cap's role, and everything you're saying, Ronald, about the racial dynamics there. It's like, I mean, it just feels interesting that they're dealing with it. Like, I'm almost like waiting for the moment when they hit a wall and shy away from the implications of something. But I don't expect them to. But it just feels like this feels relatively new for these characters and this type of story. So I like it a lot.
That definitely seems to be like, again, I think we've said it multiple times. That is like the best stuff about this show, is just that, like, I think even in 2 episodes in, you see so much more of like the real world impact of the existence of superheroes, like in the world, this ground level impact, even to the level of like when Sam's walking around Baltimore and kids are recognizing him and like what that means to kids, especially, kids from neighborhoods, like Isaiah lives in, like it's just a really interesting thing of, you get the person, you get the character beats, you get to see them and their families and things like that. But you also are seeing like the world around them in the bubble that they live in when they're not doing the superhero stuff. Specifically with Sam, because he really does have a life in this world, with his sister, and like in some semblance of it, or what's left of it. And, it's just really interesting, like the bank loan and like, even the police, altercation, even just like walking around streets, like with those kids, that really stood out to me, because it's like, he didn't become Captain America. You know, he is just Sam, and he's the Falcon, and like this kid still is like, oh, you're you know, you're Black Falcon or whatever he said, and it's just like, and they had that whole joke about, you know, why am I black this? Why, you know, you're black kid or whatever he said to him. It was like a joke, but like he's playing with these kids, he's interacting with these kids who like probably in some way idolize him, and I really just like, I love that so far about this series, 2 episodes in, that you see like what Sam means to people that he directly connects with, like his sister, and people who he has never met in his life. And, you know, and immediately it tells you so much about his character, that he's just like nice to everybody. You know, he tries to be the best person possible when he's interacting with people. And I think that like it's done more for his character for me than any of the really parts he's had in the MCU movies. Like 2 episodes of this show, I'm like, I love this guy now. You know, I'm like, I've turned on him a lot, and I really like him, and I really want to see more of what's happening with him in this series.
Well, his best moments before were comic moments, and
sure.
around the borders moments, like that moment with him in Louise's narration where he's sitting on the bench in Ant-Man, and he's like part of that. That was great. But also the moment in you know, the moment with Bucky, it's like where he says, I hate you or whatever. It's like, to me, though, that's maybe why we have this show, is that he was really good in those moments. But I mean, they both are, honestly, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie are both like doing great with this expanded view of their characters. It's almost like they're actors who are real actors who are given a chance to do something that, as well acted as all these movies have been, you haven't had this chance yet. These shows maybe are representing that, a little bit more of a relaxed timeline, a little bit more lived in performances. But yeah, it's the perfect way to bring characters like this to the fore. And I just like seeing characters talk about story stuff that we remember and we know what's going on, seeing them talk about the implications of what's happened. And it just feels good. It just feels like if we are calling this our soap opera, this is like a, you know, those, if you ever watched a soap opera, there were weeks where a lot of shit happened and you love to see characters finally talking, or even to use a different example, Lost was a show where every now and then characters would have a conversation and they would ask the questions you wanted them to ask. And I felt like seeing them talk this week. Also, not just that part of it, but the other side of it, the kind of buddy comedy side of it, was pretty strong too. I thought them hiding behind the shelving in that warehouse was kind of fun.
Oh my God, that scene was great, man.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. There's a weird energy to it that if you just squint and pretended that Marvel's CGI was like just a little bit better, then you'd be looking at some really eye-popping stuff. I also thought that truck action scene, it wasn't quite as effective to me as the flying one last week, but it was another really good action scene, and it makes me wonder if we're just going to get a good action scene every week, you know, something well conceived.
I hope so. Absolutely. I hope so, for real. They've been good so far.
So we got a pretty interesting revelation during the course of the show. During therapy, Bucky kind of opened up about why he's sinking he's in such a weird place. And he kind of, I'm paraphrasing, he kind of said something along the lines of, you know, he was very disappointed that Sam didn't take on the mantle of Captain America, because if he wasn't right as Captain America, then maybe Cap was wrong about his feelings about Bucky also being a person that was capable of good, capable of a mantle, of, you know, changing his ways, and, you know, his character assessment of Bucky may be incorrect as well. And that was heavy, man. This is something that we hadn't heard before. And look, this is within a comic book setting. It felt so weighted. I felt it, man. It felt like, God damn it, like I felt it. I felt it in my heart. I felt a little like teary a little bit, because that level of disappointment in an idea, like, you know, you thought you were meant for a thing, and because you know, a couple cogs in the process were kind of messed up, that you feel like you weren't worthy of it as well, is a real thing. And I think, have you
ever had that happen with somebody you're close to, though, where you value something, or you think of a moment or a formative experience or something, and then you talk to that person about it and they're like, oh yeah, that was cool, or what, and you realize that it meant something totally different to them, and you realize like, I'm putting my self-worth on this, on something a person said one time, you know, I'm hanging my hopes on it. And you see, like, it's interesting, Ronald, that you mentioned that, Ron, because it is like, these are these heroic characters, right? And we deal with them as heroes in these stories so much, but it's rare to see them sit down and say, like, what are the psychological effects of like having a hero, of like of idolizing somebody, you know, because Bucky obviously idolized Steve. And also that there is a little bit of his own self-approval that's like built into, well, if Steve was okay with me, then I must be okay. And I think we can think, I mean, immediately, I think we all probably thought of our wives. If you think like whose approval, like whose approval without which you, or you know what I mean? Your moral compass would be off if you couldn't count on this super solid person. I don't know. I just think there's something. Yeah, you're right, Ronald. It's like a super deep notion because it works on a psychological, relatable level, but it's also like in a fictional sense, it's a character dealing with the passing of this larger than life type of character that Captain America is. And like, I mean, having lost my dad, I sometimes have to try to imagine what he might have said. To give myself a little guidance, you know, and totally imagine Bucky going through something like that. That scene really did, that confession when he kind of came at Sam with that. I thought that was like, and it's interesting to see, and I think this is kind of both a little funny in a way, but just because it's a character note, that you could see that Bucky's been in therapy this whole time. He was much, surprisingly, of the two of them, Bucky was the one who was much more willing to play along with therapy. Put himself into it, and Sam was the more closed off, the guy who you'd think would be more emotionally open. He was much more closed off to the idea that someone was going to pick his brain than Bucky. I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting switch on your expectations.
Yeah.
I feel like that whole scene also, like, to add to that real quick, I feel like that whole scene also like it explains everything in terms of like Bucky's desperation. Like when he finds out who, you know, that there's another Captain America, like he like tracks Sam down and like wants to jump on this mission with him and like just tags along out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And there's like this immediate, like, no, you should be this person. Like you are this person. Like, you have to be this person because, you know, that's validation for me too. Like, which is what comes out in the therapy session. But I mean, also like bigger scale, like if that's not the case, then like Civil War basically never happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's some pretty big repercussions. If Cap was wrong about either of them, he's wrong about both of them, you know? So that's a super heavy thing, even just to suggest that and to put that on the table for the MCU. That's like a big thing. And I think it's a good character beat for both of them, especially for Bucky, because like, it is good to see, like, you know, he's just like open about it. Like he just says it, like as soon as like Anthony Mackie opens up in that scene, he just lets it out, you know? And I think that that's like a really good, like, and that will play, I think, into them working off of one another through the rest of the series, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So there is a point where Bucky takes Sam to Baltimore to meet a man who was, serving in the army, happened to be African American, who had been given this super soldier serum that had basically been thrown away by the government.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that did he pose as Cap? Like, so what was the whole thing? He had done a lot of jail time, and that got kind of muddy for me. So what happened? Do you remember?
You know, I would have to look at the scene specifically again, but it was more that he and Bucky were in Korea together, or they were in, they fought somewhere together, like back when the government was using Bucky, and they fought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They sent him to fight Bucky during the Korean War, and like there's a comment that like he lost, but that he like badly damaged his arm.
Yeah, he cut off his.
Like they say that, and then like, you know, when he failed or whatever, you know, the government, he was basically, you know, he was imprisoned by the government for 30 years, and just horrible things were done to him. And
but it made me wonder about the aging process and like how much is the super soldier serum responsible for Bucky being young and how much is not, because he wasn't frozen for a long time like Cap was. Cap was in the ice for a long time. Bucky was only in the ice for a short period. So why is this guy so old? He implied that they experimented on him and tried to take his essence.
I think that's.
So I wonder if that's like where he's a little drained. But honestly, Ronald, that's very much like Tuskegee experiment stuff, where it's like, that's again Marvel not just towing at something, but like jumping in, you know, head first into this very dark underbelly to American history. So I think that there is, I mean, they can't. It's that thing we've talked about it before. You can't have too much fictional fun with real life horrors, but if they're going to deal with like distrust of the government, and particularly like the racial aspects of why Sam would feel funny about just kind of what I said last time about just representing America. Just right there, that thought is troubling to him. This is a reason why that would be. So it's interesting to see where they might go with it. But if that was just a character beat, it was another little bit of like an erosion of the, not so much what Cap represents, but whatever this new Captain America represents, who seems like he's going to be much more of a tool of the government. Like if that's the kind of thing the government's doing, then it makes you realize, okay, well maybe that's what it is that we can't really trust, is just the idea of any kind of company man,
Yeah. Played by Carl Lumpkin, who is incredible looking.
Yeah.
So what's weird is he plays a 70-year-old man, but he's also almost 70, and they added aging to
they had to make him look old.
They had to make him look older because if you look at Carl Lumpkin now, like he looks so young, and he's 70.
Yeah.
He played the Mantis, for those who who were like into comic book stuff from back in the day. But yeah, it looks incredible, man. Huge dude in incredible shape. I'm hoping that they explore that character a little more. So,
me too.
Yeah.
I would. He like if he yelled at me. I've left a row home for many like worse reasons than that guy yelled. That was like his. I mean, you have his rage. It was really, you really felt it. It's funny when characters in a movie, like you can tell they're just like, okay, we're gonna leave now. Like
I'll get out of here.
Yeah, right. We'll just
throw in the Altoids case at at the wall. So where we left in this episode. How are you feeling about everything, all the events that are happening? Obviously, U.S. agent is now watching them. So it's very obvious at this point when they get arrested from the situation of visiting this gentleman in Baltimore, and them getting arrested shortly after a situation with the police. U.S. agent shows up to pick them up. So it's very obvious that at that point that there's a level of monitoring for these two. Right.
And what he represents is that force, the force that could monitor them and could swoop in and get, and also like this whole thing of like Bucky's arrest, like it's that little slap that someone's letting you know, you're on thin ice, that all we have to do is like, make the call and you're put away. All the good that you've done is gone. So I think that little veiled threat, even though he's like, no, I'm here to help. You can totally tell that he's kind of letting them know what they're up against. And he also, at the end of the episode, he's effectively turned into someone who's kind of an adversary, it seems. Even if it's for the right reasons. Again, I still feel like he's going to be going after, the bad guys, but it's also questionable what the agenda of the quote unquote bad guys is and how bad it really is. And, again, it feels like a lot of gray characters in this show. But the main thing is, Daniel Bruhl. I mean, bring him on. I love that guy, and I love Zemo, and I love the idea of Marvel getting a kind of, like I said, sort of a Lecter character.
Oh man.
So, I wonder if we're going to get Martin Freeman. Good. Martin Freeman was his jailer in that at the end of Civil War.
All right.
I don't know. The like the mention of Sharon Carter, I think just we're gonna look forward to her coming back soon, hopefully.
Well, she was in the trailer,
but I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know when we'll see her.
I really like we kind of hit it at the top of the episode a bit, and we keep mentioning the whole John Walker character, but like I think like there's a moment in this series like when they're talking about super soldiers and like even when he's up against them on the top of the truck. And again, I have no idea what happens to this character, and I don't know if they're gonna do anything like you guys may know. But it definitely feels at the end of the episode like my feeling was like he's not going to get help from these guys that are like the heroes, the Avengers. So like where else can he get help? And like I'm questioning the motivations where like if they were to get a hold of super soldier serum, like if he would take it, like if at any cost, if I can't have the Avengers, like we can get like the government can get a hold of this stuff, because even we're questioning the government and what they did to Isaiah. And it's like, if they got a hold of more of this, they could make us like that again. And we could have the dominance that, that maybe they think they need. So that's kind of where I left the episode, like with that character. I kind of felt it like quite a bit in their last few interactions that he had with Bucky and Sam. And even like, even when he's fighting them, like you can just tell he can feel like he's not going to win this fight. Like he can't win this fight. As soon as he threw that shield, like I was saying before, to save Lamar, it's like, he's just a guy fighting now. Like he's going to get his ass kicked. There's no chance. There's no chance. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. That was like kind of like my, obviously I want to see Zemo But like that part of that character is what's really intriguing to me, and like the lore of like power and the strength, and especially when you are filling the shoes of someone who is like the ultimate of ultimates of that kind of character. In this world, it's just like the temptation has got to be there, especially when you're being turned down constantly by the vendors that are left to help you. It's like there's a desperation there that I think that'd be interesting if that's kind of something that gets explored. But I don't know. We'll see.
But that would also be the kind of quote unquote heroic weakness that a character could have.
Yes.
Like he could be motivated by wanting to be powerful and motivated by wanting to do what, like if a situation arises where he really can't do what he thinks should have been done, and he realizes that power was the reason he couldn't do it. They'd have to like illustrate it more dramatically, but the scene you were talking about sets it up. The idea that like he's just a guy who's in a fight. I mean, they kind of made it seem like, wait, does he have some kind of strength because of the way he was using the shield? But then they made sure for us to note that he was kind of getting knocked around. So yeah, I think that would be like an interesting way for a character like that to fail, would be to just overshoot and out of expecting too much from himself. But I think beyond that, you can see there's an edge creeping in. It might just be because these guys have turned him down, but there's a little bit of a sort of like, I'm not fucking around anymore, no more Mr. Nice Guy kind of thing at the end. That I don't know if that's like him kind of showing his true colors a little bit, or if that's just him putting a wall up now that he knows these guys are not going to accept him.
Help him. Yeah. We'll see.
All right.
I was just going to say, I do like the idea of playing with the idea of morality within good, the way that Civil War did.
Yeah.
There were two people in Civil War. There was Iron Man and Cap, who both wanted to save the world, right? But within that come different ideas about that. And I like that what this new version of Cap represents, and some of his ideas about what that means, what freedom means, what taking care of the bad guys means. And some of it is a level of control that they don't want. There's something about being an Avenger. You kind of are a free agent. You can move within the guidelines of whatever the Avengers do, but the government is, that's an overshadowing thing that you don't really have to worry about so much.
Yeah.
They want, this Cap wants them to work within that system. Just like kind of the old Cap.
Yeah, kind of. Well, that was what Iron Man. Well, again, it changed, but right. There's always somebody heroic advocating for that. But I think with this character, there is a sort of darker edge that we're seeing, and I wonder how. Again, you don't know how much the show is going to go into it. In the comics, it was a torture. I mean, the character had a much crazier story than I expect him to have in the show. He already is different. So.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we'll see.
All right. So, do we have a poll question? And by the way, what was the result of our poll? What was our poll last time? Did we have results?
Yeah. The poll question. Let me get to that. Sorry. The poll question that we had was about Black Widow. So basically, where are people going to see it? And we kind of had a split between theater, Disney Plus, and both in terms 30-30-30 for how people are going to see the movie.
We just don't know. We just don't know.
We just don't know. This is a perfectly even sort of thing. Yeah. So what should
we need more than 3 people next time?
Yeah.
A couple of them to agree.
What do you want the new question to be? We can. Is Zemo a good? I don't know. I'm very curious about Zemo, and this overarching story about Hydra. Hydra's going to be around forever, and I kind of love it. I love what they're.
Well, you have like these flag smashers like on the run, but someone is threatening them also. So it's like, who is threatening them? Who are they running from? Or whatever it is. So that's interesting. It could be who could be pulling those strings. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure right now. Maybe we need to discuss it. Yeah.
We'll come up with something and post it.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good approach. We'll just come up with something and post it. That works.
We'll just come up with something.
I didn't mean to reveal that we had nothing. I thought maybe there would be something more obvious.
Oh no!
It's not always.
No, it's a open-ended brainstorm. Right. We just kind of throw this on the show, and sometimes magic happens. Sometimes.
That's our question. What should our poll be?
Yeah.
Should we keep doing these?
Okay, cool. Well, Star Spangled Man, episode 2, Falcon and Winter Soldier. We just went over that. So I don't know that I don't know if we have the title for the third episode. I looked briefly before we started recording. I didn't see it on like the wiki or IMDb, but I don't know. I'm really into the show so far, and I think we all are. It seems like they're kind of moving in the right direction again with another really great series that they have on the new platform that they're doing the shows on in Disney Plus. But yeah, we'll check in next week when we see episode 3, which will take us halfway through the season.
Yep.
Which afterwards will be in the back half of season 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier already, which is crazy. And we'll check in then. This show, obviously, this is a YouTube exclusive, Marvel Schmarvel. If you follow this show or you saw this show somewhere and you liked it, please come over to the youtube.com/movieschmovie and subscribe so you can get your notifications about it. Make sure you turn notifications on so that you get alerts when new episodes come out of this and our main podcast, the Movie Schmovie podcast. It all kind of flows from that. And that comes out every Friday here on YouTube and on any podcast platform that should be out there. If you can find us, that'd be great. If you're digging this show and haven't heard of it before, please check out the podcast too. You guys have anything else you want to mention before we check out?
Not
I
I.
think that's it for me.
We've got to come up with a better sign off for these. I got to say that because the Aunt May thing, I don't know. I don't know.
Oh,
maybe there's
man.
something in the show we can find and throw that on the
Maybe
tag.
Yeah.
For each season of these shows, maybe there's something fun.
That was clearly chosen purely because it rhymes with "You've Made Our Day." If we open it up,
Yeah,
to others,
obviously.
then
Yeah, right.
then there's no no stopping us. There's no stopping us.
There's no stopping
There's no
us.
stopping
You know
us.
what? That's it right there. There's no.
We
stopping
haven't
us.
stopped yet.
And
How
on-
about that?
Yeah, and on that note, we haven't stopped yet. That's it. That's good, John. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
Bye.